Okay, hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Charlie Keenan. I'm an educational program specialist here at the Center for Entrepreneurship, part of the College of Engineering at the University of Michigan. Today, we're going to be talking about the Graduate Certificate in Innovation and Entrepreneurship, which is a 12-credit program open to master's, PhD, and professional students in all schools and colleges across the university. I'm happy to welcome three current and former students who have completed the program with me today, Eric Rodriguez, Olga Verbuski, and Genevieve Sertic. So thank you all for joining us. And to go ahead and get things started, let's go around and do some introductions. So if you want to just tell us your name, a little about yourself, and maybe an entrepreneurial goal that you have. So Eric, I'll start with you.
Sure. Well, my name is Eric Rodriguez, and I graduated last year, 2019, with a Master in Public Policy and graduate certificate in Innovation Entrepreneurship. Currently, I'm actually working in the city manager's office of the city of San Jose, where I work on actually innovation policy and small business development. And something I'm working on right now, also with the limited time I have, is my wife and I are developing a teaching game to understand diversity and equity inclusion and how folks can move in that space and understand sort of their role and how they can help folks. I think sort of current to the time we're in right now.
Okay, awesome. Well, really appreciate you taking the time dealing with all of that at the same time. Genevieve, you can go next.
Sure. So, hi, my name is Genevieve Sertic. I am a recent 2020 graduate of the University of Michigan's master's program in electrical and computer engineering with a power and energy focus. And I also completed the certificate in innovation and entrepreneurship through the Center for Entrepreneurship. I am going into consulting starting this summer. I'm very passionate about sustainability and also about healthcare, and I'm hoping to be able to use what I learned in the certificate program and in my engineering master's program and sort of combine the technical side and the business side, bridging that gap to move innovations forward in those spaces. I'm really excited to get started on my path this summer.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, and Olga?
Yeah, hi, I'm Olga Bobrovsky. I am finishing up my 4th year as a biomedical engineering student.
Okay, great. So for each of you, thinking about how you came to pursue the certificate in innovation and entrepreneurship, Genevieve, maybe we can ask you first. How did you come to make that decision, and also how did the certificate pair with your master's program at U of M?
I don't know. I think it's kind of a funny story. I was thinking when I started my degree in electrical and computer engineering, my master's program, I was thinking I'll probably start as an R&D engineer somewhere, and I'll hopefully move up the ranks to be in management at some point. So I was thinking it's probably a good idea to learn a little bit more about the management side of things. So I took ENTR 560, Amy Sell's class, project management and consulting, and more for the project management side. And I loved that part of it, but I actually really loved the consulting side. And we all got put on these projects with I worked with so many really smart students in the class who really got me inspired to learn more about the business side of things. I loved what I was learning, and I realized consulting maybe is something that I do want to do in the long term, which I hadn't quite been considering as much beforehand. Just taking that class, really, honestly, it set me off on a whole new path, and it made me want to do something a little bit different than what I was originally thinking when I graduated. So I started thinking, I want to learn more about the business side of things. I'm learning a lot. I'm going in a lot of depth on the technical side of things in my master's program, but I'd love to get the breadth of business knowledge that I would need in order to be a good consultant, be an effective person in that field. And it was perfect for that. It's a perfect bridge to your second question about sort of how did this pair with my program. It was honestly a perfect way to bridge what I was learning technically with what is possible in the business world, how you can use innovations that you might come up with that depth of technical knowledge in a business setting, and how you can actually get them out there.
That's great. I mean, that's great to hear. Olga, so also an engineer, but also I'm curious as a PhD student, how these courses kind of match up with your time in the lab and your research that you have going on.
Well, absolutely, right. So my current focus is on translational tissue engineering, so that we hope to eventually create a therapy that can be used for humans. And while I'm working with stalls right now, at the bench, in the hood, I have been for a long time really interested in how you translate that from the bench to a patient and what that process is for if someone that's a researcher, for even like a company that's considering acquiring. And that's part of the reason I gravitated towards the certificate, because I took design classes, I was getting experience with doing the research, but I didn't quite know the business side of things or even the different branches that I could consider my career going once I was finished with the degree. Like again, I even shy away from technical work and how can I help possibly a startup grow with their technology and determine what research can continue to go forward.
Great. And then Eric, you are coming from the Ford School of Public Policy, so not the engineering side of things, but how did this certificate kind of fit into your interests?
Yeah, I really challenged myself to think outside of the box of policy. And, I had been working at the University of Michigan Transportation Research Institute, which is also part of engineering, and came across it over there. I worked with a team of engineers almost all the time in that work. I was helping specifically to help to design connected automated vehicle policy. So there was something that work sort of informed the work in the certificate, because I was really thinking about getting into the startup space in connected automated vehicles, and certainly right now living in Silicon Valley, and it's a really good startup space for that. I really came into it because I really wanted to think about the business side of connected automated vehicles, and I got a lot of great exposure to not just the engineering faculty, folks at engineering, students actually, and thinking about, I'm sure I took classes with Olga and Genevieve. So I learned a lot from folks, and it really helped inform where I'm at today in Silicon Valley. I think that I benefited a lot specifically from one class. I think that Genevieve mentioned, Amy Sell's class on project management consulting. We actually work with a startup from the University of Michigan. The whole team was engineers, and I just learned so much, and I really valued that experience and have been using it a lot in my time in City Hall here in San Jose.
Okay, awesome. So as I mentioned at the outset, the certificate is a 12-credit program, and there's one required course, ENTR 500, Intro to Innovation Careers. There's several core courses that people have to complete. So project management and consulting is one of those, as you've already heard about. And then there's a group of electives. So I was curious, for all of you that have now gone through the entire program, is there a specific kind of memory from one of those classes, or a favorite kind of moment that you have from your time in the program? And Olga, we can start with you this time.
Sure. Everyone's shouting out project management consulting, which I thought was a fantastic course. But I also had a lot of great memories from the course is called Patent Law, and it discussed how you could translate research into a patent, but also discuss like different methods of protecting your own IP. And something that was so cool to me about it was that this is like an experienced patent lawyer that came to teach us with some of his extra time just to explain the different like nuances of patent law. By the end of the course, we were writing our own patent claims, and we invented a technology, and then we mentioned how like we would structure kind of a plan to protect every aspect of that, not just the technology itself, but any logos that we made, would you want to form a company? And it was, I personally thought that like I'd never be interested in the law aspects of things. I didn't go to law school, and it seemed just like a lot of reading, but it was a really immersive and fun course and incredibly useful.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so for those that don't know, we have ENTR 408, which is a patent law class, and then ENTR 530, which is an innovation and IP strategy class. So those are both options. So Genevieve, what about you?
We already talked a lot about ENTR 560, but great class. But something else that might be great for people who are thinking about the program, or maybe think they might want to know more about entrepreneurship. This last semester, I took ENTR 407, I believe it is, Entrepreneurship Hour, and the discussion section 417 to go with it. And those were amazing classes. There are a lot of things to consider right now in this time that are making businesses more difficult to start and more businesses difficult to continue, but there are a lot of opportunities too. And it was very interesting to hear from all our panelists throughout the whole semester, but that was a very memorable moment for me too, just hearing, all these different people who have been through some sort of entrepreneurial endeavor, seeing what their path looks like. The whole class, just for a brief overview, the whole class is an entrepreneur or somebody with entrepreneurial experience comes in and discusses what their experience has been, things that they feel like they did right, things that they would have maybe done differently if they had done it again, so that we can learn from them. And there's a huge diversity of people who come in and talk. And it's so interesting to hear their stories. The entrepreneurship hour is exactly what it says, an hour every week. So it's not much of a time commitment if you're still unsure exactly about whether you want to know more about entrepreneurship. And I love learning by example, and it's great to hear all these different examples of what people have gone through.
Great. And Eric, what about you? Anything besides project management that stands out?
Yeah, I have to give a special shout out to Brian Hayden's class, Finding Your Venture. I know that I was taking Amy's class and his class at the same time, and actually fed really well into each other, because in Amy's class, I was helping a startup, develop their business plan and think about customer interviews. And in Brian's class, I was learning about the process and learning about getting, investments and stuff like that. And at least in my time now, I look back at Brian's class and I know that having, developing this product for diversity and equity inclusion and helping people understand, how institutions can wrangle with it, with it, making their institutions more equitable. The prototyping that we learned in that class, the sort of customer interviews, like thinking about, the finding your venture process has been very helpful to that. And, I certainly have been using it a lot in this product development and hopefully in the next phase. So I definitely, that experience was extremely critical to my certificate.
Great. Yeah. And so for those that don't know, he's talking about ENTR 410, Finding Your Venture. So that's another great starting place for people interested in entrepreneurship, much like 407 Entrepreneurship Hour that Genevieve mentioned. What kinds of skills did you learn in these classes and in the certificate program that you can kind of draw on in your experience now?
Having gone through, finding your venture and all these other things, it's been really helpful to then pivot and share with businesses some of the things I learned and designing small business curriculum with sort of experts also in the Silicon Valley area that, help small businesses here in San Jose. We have about like 30,000 plus that are vibrant and, really good for our economy here. And so especially now and during COVID, helping businesses pivot in a time that, of a lot of uncertainty. I reflect a lot on my time in the Innovation and Entrepreneurship certificate program because I learned a lot of skills that, also helping to develop curriculum here has been really impactful and helped a lot of folks make it through this time. It's been really uncertain.
Great. That's good to hear. Genevieve, you just graduated. So, thinking maybe as an engineer, what kinds of skills did you develop in these courses that maybe wouldn't have been exposed to just in ECE?
So I would say, if I had to pick out a few really big skills that this certificate program teaches you, I think one of the really big things is working with people, just knowing how to find the right teams, knowing how to find good people who will help you be successful and people who you can help be successful is such a big part of the program. So many of the classes that the certificate program offers involve you working with groups of other people and finding good ways to do that. And that does happen a lot in engineering too, but it's in a different setting. And the certificate program has I think it's more of a setting that you might be, that you might see if you're in a role in the future that maybe spans a few different areas, if you are kind of serving as a bridge between different groups of people. And I think those are really fun roles to sort of look to. So I really enjoyed that down the full path to actually being realizable, I think is a really big part of the program and what I learned too.
Yeah, great. And Olga, I know you mentioned a little about kind of commercialization of technology. So how have these classes kind of shaped how you thought about your future career?
It's just it provided so many options. When I started the program here, I thought, okay, there's academia and there's industry, and it just seemed like very black and white to me that I was going to end up in just like an industry scientist position because I don't really have much interest in academia. But with all the resources to the Center of Entrepreneurship and the certificate, I realized there's a number of different roles that I could fit into, whether it's doing that R&D position or going to consulting, just like Genevieve, or working in a patent office or helping with commercialization. And really, the sky's the limit, to be honest. And not to mention like all the different people I've met. If I have questions about career, I could reach out to and be like, hey, I'm curious about this. And you've mentioned we were in the same class or you taught this class. Can you give me advice and tips on how I can find more information? It's really such a fantastic resource.
Yeah, that's terrific to hear. Okay, so we'll end with one last question for each of you. So assuming there's any graduate students watching this who are potentially interested in our courses or doing the certificate program, what would you say to them and what advice would you have? So Genevieve, we'll start with you for this.
If you have room in your schedule at all, just try out a class or two. It definitely can't hurt. And I think like I said, I think any of these classes are good for anyone to know about because you'll be interacting with business concepts no matter what you're doing in the future. Not directly for specifically entrepreneurship, but entrepreneurship can mean a lot of different things. And you don't have to be thinking I'm going to start my business right out of college, although you certainly can, and that would be a very cool thing to do, but that's not for everybody. But just because that's not your plan, that doesn't mean that the certificate program isn't for you. Like, even if you don't think it's 100% for you, just trying out a class or two, like trying out the entrepreneurship hour, maybe something that doesn't even have to be a big time commitment. It could change your view on things, and it could really help you down the road, and it could even change your career path like it did for me. So it's definitely a worthy thing to at least entertain the idea of, and maybe it'll set you on a new path.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Olga, what advice would you have for a grad student watching this?
Genevieve really did cover it nicely, but one thing I would add is these courses just do wonders for your scientific communication, because wherever you go, no matter what you're doing, you're going to have to advocate yourself and your ideas, and you're also going to have an understanding of what the people around you want and need. In these courses, you find people from multiple different fields. You have to explain your research to a non-scientific community. You have to also, in cases of maybe in project management and consulting, you have to take a project and a scientific niche that you don't understand completely, and you have to be able to get that information and learn how to ask the right questions. So all these courses for the certificate really help improve your communication with different people, which whether you work in a company or a firm or you think academia is always really, really helpful.
Okay, great. And then Eric, we'll let you have the last word.
I have made more friends, more contacts outside of my program and in the engineering alum base here in Silicon Valley than in my own program. So I think it's a great network to be a part of, especially, being from the University of Michigan. I'd really encourage you to just take one class and see what you think.
Okay, great. Well, that's a great example to wrap up on. So I want to thank all my guests again for your time. And I hope this has helped people watching answer some questions or at least start thinking about the program. So if anyone wants to learn more about the graduate certificate program, you can go to cfe.umich.edu/certificate. Read more about our program there, our courses, and you can schedule an advising appointment. If you want to learn more about the Center for Entrepreneurship, you can visit cfe.umich.edu/summer. Check out our resources and find more information about our programs and offerings there. So thank you so much, and go Blue.